Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
We're back once again at the corner of truth and courage. Thank you for joining us here today at Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. Again, I want to announce to our listeners, those of you up in British Columbia, we're going to have a mini conference with our listeners to KARI. We're going to be meeting first in Victoria on October the 18th. And so if you're on the island there at Vancouver Island, we'd love for you to make that trip to Victoria and to be with us on the evening of October the 18th, Friday at 6 p.m. We're going to go to 9 p.m. We'll have a time of Q&A, questions and answers, but I got some great things that I want to be sharing with you, and I'll be revealing some exciting news, too, a development at Fortress of Faith. Kind of waiting till then to share that with everybody. And then on the 19th, on Saturday the 19th, we're going to be in Surrey at Grace Baptist Church. And that will start at 10 a.m. So that's Friday the 18th in Victoria at the Capital City Baptist Church. If you want information on the location of these meetings there, you can go to our website, fortressoffaith.com, fortressoffaith.com. Or sign up for our e-newsletter to come to you by email, and that information will be coming out here real shortly to you. We're getting a newsletter together, and that'll be coming out shortly. So Friday, October the 18th, in Victoria at the Capital City Baptist Church, and on Saturday in Surrey at Grace Baptist Church. We start at 10 a.m. on Saturday and 6 p.m. on Friday. All right, yesterday I was talking to you about the death of Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, who is a proxy leader of the Iranian army. Actually, you know, when the pager bombs went off, the beeper bombs as they're calling them, the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was wearing one, and he got injured in that attack. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you know, they try to pretend that Hezbollah and Hamas are standing alone and Iran has nothing to do with it, when we all know that's not the truth, that the Iranian ambassador was injured in that attack. He was wearing a pager as well from Hezbollah. Shows that these are none other than the same people, the same group, same organization. And when Nasrallah was killed, the others are saying, well, he died as a martyr. And he gets to go to heaven with his great reward, the 72 virgins, and so on there. Let me say something about that before I get into what I plan to talk about today. I was debating an imam a number of years ago on this. Somehow we got talking about the 72 Al-Hurlin, the 72 virgins. There are 7 blessings that Muhammad promised to the martyrs. That's, if you die as a martyr, if you die as a shaheed, then you get these rewards. Your sins will be forgiven the moment your blood is shed. You'll not have to stand in the day of judgment. You'll have the highest reward in heaven. You'll have jewels that are more valuable than anything that's in this world. And the 6th blessing, you'll be married to 72 virgins. The word is Al-Hurlin. And this imam was kind of trying to make a point that, I don't know Arabic like he does. And so he said, we can translate that word, Al-Hurlin, as raisins. That doesn't necessarily mean virgins. It means raisins. And so I said, hold on a minute. Let's stop and let's think about that for a moment. So if I give up my life here on earth, my reward to die as a martyr for Allah is to go to heaven to have 72 raisins? Really? I sure hope they're chocolate-covered raisins. He didn't like that. And then I said, have you not read of all the sexual things they're going to do to these raisins as well? Certainly was upset about that and wanted to move on to something else because he was certainly looking foolish. And but by the way, that's the 6th blessing. The 7th The seventh blessing, I believe, is more appealing to a martyr than the sixth blessing, believe it or not. Then rather than the orgy in heaven, he'll have a seventh reward. He'll plead for 70 others. He'll plead for 70 others. So not only does he gain his own salvation, but he'll get to gain the salvation for 70 others. And I've heard this many times in Israel when I'm over, that the Palestinians, the women, the mothers, they'll pick one of their children, and every day they'll say to him, "Oh, our little Shahid, you'll be the one who'll get to have great honor and blessing in heaven," and all this stuff. And every day he hears from his mother, he's going to be the Shahid, the martyr, dying, giving up his life to kill the infidel, not only to win his salvation, but to win the salvation for his own family. Why does a woman do that? Why would a mother try to raise her son to kill him, to die? Because she knows she has very little hope of heaven herself. Muhammad taught that hell was largely filled with women, 3/4 filled with women. So there's very little hope for women to get into heaven. But if surely a son remembers his mother, surely he'll do that. And if she was kind to him and treated him nicely, she'll be picked as one of the 70, and she'll gain her salvation as well. Aren't you glad that the gospel, that the truth has come to your address, that you don't have to live with this nonsense and all this? I sure am. But I'm brokenhearted for Muslims that have been born into the lie, and they need to know the truth. All right, I've got to get my skates on. Let's look into why all this is going on in the Middle East. Well, it takes us to our Bible. In Genesis chapter 12, we have what we call the Abrahamic covenant. And God tells Abraham to get out of his land, get out of his home, get out of his father's home, and go unto a land that I will show thee, verse number 1. So the covenant has a piece of real estate that's attached to it. We need to understand that God has promised to Abraham a particular piece of land. When we get to chapter 15, I'm just going to have to quickly develop this here. There's a ritual that's going on. They take animals and sacrifice them, cut them into halves. They separate them, one on one side, one on another. And when two are making a contract with each other, the two will walk between the sacrifices. God puts Abraham to sleep in chapter 15, and only God passes through. So this is a unilateral agreement. This is now based on God to perform, not on man to perform it, but on God to perform it. And in that, while this is going on, in verse number 18, he says, "In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land." So the seed, this land, belongs to the seed of Abraham. Well, we find in the next chapter, in chapter 16, that he's getting older, and he doesn't have any children yet, and so he takes matters in his own hands. You've heard the story. And he takes to himself a wife, Hagar, who is his wife's handmaid, her slave, an Egyptian. And so Abraham marries Hagar, and they have a son, and that is Ishmael. Now, he is described for us in that same chapter. Verse number 12 says, "And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand will be against him." And there's an interesting close to that. It says, "And he will dwell in the presence of all his brethren." If you look into the Hebrew word of presence, the word that's used is poineim. And the meaning of that, the concept here, is, he'll live in the face of his brethren, the presence, the face. But the idea here is it's an antagonistic term. We use the expression today, "Man, you're in my face. Get out of my face. Get out of my space. Watch it, man." And so this is the idea that's being explained here. We miss it in the translation. It's translated correctly, but, the deeper understanding is kind of missed there. And so to dwell in the presence, and who was his brethren? Well, later, Isaac is born. And from Isaac comes the Jews. From Ishmael comes the Arabs. What we're dealing with is what I call the family feud, the great family feud. The Hatfields and the McCoys have nothing on this family feud. This family feud goes all the way back to the book of Genesis. Centuries and millennia, there has been a division between these people. Again, let's get back to the land, because this land is really the focus. And God says, I'm going to give to your seed and your seed after you this land. So who gets it? Abraham, is it Isaac's seed, or will it be Ishmael's seed? Well, we get to chapter 17, and God makes that clear, because Abraham calls out to God for Ishmael in verse number 18. And Abraham said unto him, O God, that Ishmael might live before thee. He said, God, please watch over my son. Pay attention to him, and may he be blessed by you. In verse 19, and God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for his Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and will multiply him abundantly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. So clearly, the covenant is spelt out to go to Isaac, the Jews, not the Arabs. Even though the Ishmael's the firstborn, even though rightfully the firstborn should have claim to it, and the Arabs make that point. But why do they think that the land is belonged to them? Because if you hear the Arabs and the rest of the Muslims in the world, they're all going to tell you the Jews are stealing our land. That land belongs to us. Even though for 3,500 years it's belonged to Israel, the Arabs want to say, no, it's ours. Why do they say that? Because 600 years after Christ, a man popped on the scene who happened to be an Arab, a descendant of Ishmael, who claimed to be a prophet of God, who got revelation from God. And his revelation, the Quran, says the story differently. For example, when Abraham takes his son up to be sacrificed, the son whom he loved, guess who he takes in the Quran? He takes Ishmael. Not Isaac, but Ishmael. And in the Quran, Ishmael is the one who is the blessed son. He's the one who gets the covenant. He's the one that should have the land. So now do you understand why the Arabs are fighting the Jews over their land, and they call the Jews the foreign occupiers? This is why. And all that trouble that's going on in our world today in the Middle East, and has been there ever since we've been born, goes back to our Bible. That's it for today. Join us again tomorrow at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.